Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Brittnee. Today I have a bonbon design idea for you. It was inspired originally by Valentine's Day, but then I finished it late. It doesn't really matter anyway though, because it's not really Valentine's specific. So what I'm going for today is black lace. For this design, I'm just experimenting and making up the technique. So we'll see if it works. Here are the supplies that you'll need. A polycarbonate chocolate mold. You could try this on different shapes probably, but today I'm just using this grayish half sphere. Some lollipop sticks, some mini elastics or rubber bands, some lace. I bought this from Amazon and it comes in a strip that's just the perfect width for what I'm doing. Some modeling chocolate. I'm looking for ways to use this because I have this huge tub of it, food grade gloves, and of course some colored cocoa butters. I used black for the black lace effect, then I used some gold as well. I didn't end up using white, instead I used a tan color, but you'll see that later in the video. So essentially what I'll be doing to create the lace effect is make a stamp. Instead of using silicone, I'm using lace and modeling chocolate. So the first step in making the stamp is to cut out some lace. Now I don't want to cut these square because they won't quite reach around the stamp, so I cut them just a bit longer so that they're rectangles. I'm making a stamp in every other cavity of my mold, and my mold has 24 cavities, so I need about 12 pieces of lace. I want to show you that this lace has a front and a back. The front is raised and the back is flat. This is important for later. Now I've got my mold, my sticks, my lace, and I grab a piece of modeling chocolate and knead it a bit so it's softer and smoother. To make the stamp, I lay down a piece of lace. Be sure to lay down the piece of lace with the front or the raised texture down into the mold cavity. I estimate how much chocolate I'll need, roll it into a ball, and then just squish it down into the mold. And I'm aiming for it to be flush with the top of the mold. Next, I just poke in the sticks, which will be the stamp handles. Ignore the one I took the lace off of. I was experimenting with a different method, which, spoiler, didn't end up working. Anyway, I put the mold into the freezer for a bit because I want the chocolate to be hard for the next step. I don't know exactly how long you'll want to freeze the chocolate for it to be hard enough for this step, but my mold was in the freezer overnight. Okay, so here I realized that my modeling chocolate was soft enough that when I pushed my little ball down into the mold, it squished down into the details of the lace, which I didn't want to happen, or else the lace pattern wouldn't be raised up off of the stamp enough to show up for our design. That's what I was actually experimenting with by putting the chocolate directly into the mold, and then I was going to just put the lace on top of it. But it turns out that that modeling chocolate just got stuck in the mold and wouldn't come out. So I ended up sticking to my original plan, but to prevent the modeling chocolate from disturbing the lace pattern, I just peeled the lace off, placed it back on, and then secured the lace piece using a mini elastic. The easiest way to do this is to place two opposite corners together and then bring the other two corners together in the center as well and stretch over the elastic. If your modeling chocolate is firm, then you can keep your stamps at room temperature before stamping, but if it gets a bit soft, you'll want to store the stamps in the fridge. Make sure your mold is clean and polished. Now I've got my tempered black cocoa butter and I'm ready to create some lace. On the first one, I use a fan brush to apply the cocoa butter to the lace. I was trying to just brush it onto the top so that it was only getting onto the lace, but not onto the modeling chocolate underneath. Place it right down into the mold and give it a gentle press onto the top. Here's the first one. Do you think it looks lacy? For the second stamp, I experimented with applying the cocoa butter using a sponge brush instead. I found it harder to gauge how much cocoa butter I was getting on the lace, and so the pattern ended up being a tiny bit lighter. So I ended up sticking with the fan brush for good because it's just easier to use. So because I only made 12 stamps once I was halfway through the mold, I ran out. At that point, I just reused the ones I'd already used one more time each. The pattern created with a second use was a little different. I think the patterns were a bit bolder. They still looked good, but honestly, if I made this design again, I'd probably just make one stamp per cavity, or I would use one stamp 2 times in a row, rather than letting the cocoa butter from the original use dry first in between. Because I think the dried cocoa butter is what kind of caused the thicker lines. To back these, I wanted to try out some gold, so I tempered my edible gold cocoa butter. As a reminder, not all edible golds are microwave safe, and so I'm using my heat gun to melt this cocoa butter down and then temper it. I used a sponge brush to fill in the background of these lacy black and gold bonbons. I got about halfway through and started to wonder if the gold was going to be too gold. Originally, I thought the black would block out a lot more of the cavity and the gold would just peek through, but it ended up showing through a lot more than I thought it would. So I decided to back half of the bonbons with a nude color. First, I used my same edible gold luster to dust onto the mold cavities just to add a bit of shimmer. Then I backed all of the bonbons with a light tan color using my airbrush. I shelled these bonbons using dark chocolate, but didn't fill them this time around. So let's see how they turned out. These are the nude ones, and these are the gold ones. Alright guys, I hope that you enjoyed today's video and that you learned something new. If you liked the video, please give me a like down below and leave me a comment. Which background color did you like better? The pure gold or the shimmering nude? And did you think the black pattern ended up looking like lace? When I was done making these, I texted my sister and I said, "What do you think these look like?" And the first thing she said was lace, which made me really happy because yeah, I wasn't quite sure. It's like they give the impression of lace, but it's not like super detailed lace. It also could just look like just an abstract pattern. The second thing she said it looked like was snakeskin. So I'll take either because both are cool, and as long as it looks nice and shiny, then I'm happy. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, today's the day. If you'd like to see something else that's sweet, just click on one of these thumbnails. Thanks so much for watching today, and I'll see you soon. Bye.